What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video, and in today's video we are going to be giving our full breakdown on the newest SS events being added into the game, as today is day one of the Special Signature Volume 2 event. But before we get into it, if you guys enjoy daily King of Fighters Allstar content and you're new to the channel, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. So when you first log into the game right now, you're going to be greeted with this screen, and basically this is going to allow you to pick from one of three fighters in order to get the subject of your super mission, which we'll talk about here in momentarily. But as far as these characters go, I would definitely ignore Maxima for the most part and try to stick with either Whip or K, and overall it really doesn't matter, because to be honest with you guys, if you are a veteran or an intermediate, none of these characters are going to benefit you really whatsoever. But if you're a new player, there's definitely thought to be put into Whip and K. Whip would be good for specific low-cost missions and things of that nature. Same with K. So really it just comes down to your preference. Personally, I'm going to go with Whip because, you know, it's a waifu, but what can you do? It's up to you guys. Pick whoever you like. Really, that's what I look at when I see that kind of thing, because to be honest with you, you're not going to be using any of these characters for much of anything, so you might as well just go for who you enjoy. So even if that's Maxima, if that's who you like, go for it. But if you need a character to do any of that stuff and you're new, one of those two is probably the best way to go, meaning K or Whip. Now, this is going to be your super mission here. Basically, that's what we're going to be seeing as far as rewards. So this is just going to be largely a lot of stuff that is just kind of generic rewards, items, and stuff like that. So none of this stuff is that big of a deal. And of course, the overall reward is going to be a generic gold memory to the corresponding color of whatever character you picked. So that's pretty much what you're looking at with this stuff, guys. There's really not a whole lot here of any real major value, but it's definitely good stuff to have. I always say free items are free items. You take your free items and you be happy, because you can always use it no matter what it is. But that's pretty much what we are looking at with that. So now that we are fully logged in here, and just full disclosure, guys, it's like 3:30 in the morning, so we're going to try and get through this as best we can, but definitely have not been able to study up on this stuff yet because it's way early since this stuff was released. But hey, let's go ahead and get into this stuff. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off with the Memory Carnival event, because this thing is probably one of the worst parts of this entire update. Now, basically, when we originally had a Carnival event, it was very controversial because of the way that we had to kind of fool around with this thing to get through it, because it costs so much AP, and I guess they heard that and they tried to fix that or change that or came up with some sort of new gimmick, and that new gimmick also sucks. So as you can see here, basically you have to obtain memories in order to be able to gain the points that you will need, and you will be able to see here how many points you get for acquiring different sorts of memories in order to acquire the items on this mileage. And I will show you guys a few little things here and there when we get past this point, but basically with this, the reason why this sucks, if you're a new player, you probably are not going to have a very easy time getting through this, and you're basically forced to summon if you want to get through this entire thing. So basically this is only going to be a welcome change for veterans, and anybody else who is not a veteran, and even some veterans who don't have a bunch of memories laying around because they keep on top of combining their memories, which I'm about to go into here momentarily, they're still screwed. So basically with the rewards here, we get a generic SS memory. That is why you would want to get through this in the first place. That is the biggest selling point of this entire thing. The rest of this stuff is nothing that special. Really, the most important thing here, because as you'll see, these are basically just going to be a bunch of mystery boxes and junk. The biggest things here are going to be your gold hammers, as well as your SS generic memory, because otherwise you're looking at an HP mystery box stone thing, which just is never good. It's trash. This is junk. Like, a bunch of this stuff is just stuff that it doesn't even really matter if you get it or not. Unfortunately, though, you're basically forced to go through this because you need that SS memory, or at least you'll definitely want it. So honestly, besides maybe this ticket here and the hammers and the capsules, that's pretty much all that you're going to get on this mileage that's worth anything. Beyond that, the rest of this stuff is just stuff you might use here and there, but nothing that important. Now, as far as how you would get these, if you go to your combination system right now, one selling point to this is basically if you want to try your hand at possibly getting a random drop for a memory for SS Kyo or SS Iori, you have that potential with this because they are in the pool right now until the end of this event. So if you're combining your yellow memories, you have a potential chance at getting yourself a Kyo memory, or a purple one might net you an Iori memory, but it's all random. But this is basically the easiest way right now to get points towards this outside of summoning. You can also go into your dimensional invitations and make those if you want to, if you still have enough to be able to do that after that 7 Deadly Sins event. But that's basically the way you're going to be able to do this. And again, this is really unfortunate for anyone that is not going to be a veteran player, because they are going to have an extremely rough time getting this stuff. It's just really unfortunate, like I said, because to be honest with you guys, this was poorly designed, and I really don't think that this is going to be something that a lot of people are going to be very happy about. Although I've been wrong in the past before, maybe everybody will surprise me, but I do get the feeling that over the course of the next 24 hours, we're going to hear a lot of people complain about this thing, and that's pretty much where that's at. So that's pretty much what I think of the Carnival. It pretty much sucks. That's kind of just where I'm at with it. I hope that they maybe address this. I don't know, because again, it is going to be extremely tough for anybody that is a new player to be able to get through that, and that is my biggest concern. I already know this is, like I said, the first hour this stuff's been out. I've already heard a few people that have already gotten through this thing, so veterans have an easy time. New players, you're left in the dust. Moving on now, let's go ahead and talk about the Rush Dungeon event, because nothing can possibly go wrong with that, right? Netmarble couldn't possibly screw up a Rush Dungeon event. Those things are super easy to figure out and implement, correct? Am I right? I mean, just look at that art. Anyway, but as you can see here, this is going to be the Rush Dungeon event itself, and basically it's looking like the rewards that we get for the daily clears and so on and so forth are going to be the same as we're normally used to. So story remains the same from any other Rush Dungeon event that I've ever talked to you guys about here on the channel. Make sure that you do these once per day on the auto replay. Make sure that you try to stack your teams with as many of these things from this list as possible in order to get more points yielded towards your count for your coins, and then you can go ahead to the exchange shop and swap those out for those rewards. My recommendation is always going to be wait for the final chapter to open up. We only have a day or so to wait, so not that big of a deal. Now, as far as the shop itself, because there was a lot of question marks around this, this is your shop, guys. So, yeah, it's not great. It's not very good. So basically, this is what we're looking at here. There's not a whole lot that I would even say is going to be that big of a priority, to be honest. I would say the rare enhancement hammers are going to be the biggest priority there at 700 per, and they refresh daily, which is really cool. You get 5 a day. And then these plus in capsule mystery boxes are also going to be something that are worth picking up. Outside of that, however, the rest of this stuff is largely down to where your account is at and what you might need. But like, for instance, personally, I would never pick these up myself, but some people might find those useful. I wouldn't do the same thing with these. Some people might find it useful, so on and so forth. So basically, outside of the plus capsule mystery boxes and the enhancement hammers, kind of just pick whatever it is that you're interested in. This is a very lackluster shop. There's really not a whole lot going on in here. I'm really not that impressed, but hey, it is what it is. Like I said, what are you going to do? So that's basically what you're looking at for the Rush Dungeon event. Like I said, to summarize, just wait for this SP part of the dungeon to open up, and then go ahead and go wild as far as grinding on it if you feel like you need to with what you just saw in that exchange shop. So that is what you're going to be looking at there. So next up, let's take a look at one little detail here, because there's not much we can do about this here. For now, we'll have to talk about this at a later date, because as you can see, we have a little timer down here now that says Omega Rugal ends in 3 days. That means, of course, that we will be seeing Geese added in here as the new raid boss in 3 days, so we're gonna have to wait a little while, unfortunately. I know, it kind of sucks. I was really looking forward to this part myself. I was really wanting to do this today and take on this new boss, but unfortunately we're gonna have to wait a few more days. But this at least does confirm that he will be around permanently, and he will be rotating on some sort of weekly, monthly, we don't know yet, basis with Rugal. So that's what we know about that for now. We'll have to kind of revisit that later on, which we will definitely do, but not much we can do about it tonight. Now, before we get to the actual characters themselves, one last thing I do want to touch on as we always talk about these. Basically, these are going to be your new in-shop packages. I'm not going to go into super great detail with these because they tend to be the same every time around, so I'll just go ahead and point out a few things real quick. If you are a Dolphin, this is a great deal here, so definitely consider this. If you are a Dolphin, these are always good packages. However, if you want to take it one step further as a Dolphin, this is an even better deal. So if you're already planning on buying 2 of those $9.99 packs, you may want to go ahead and just pick this one up because you'll get more bang for your buck that way. All you whales out there already know what to spend on and are going to spend on this stuff regardless, but this is the best possible package for a whale. These guys here are nothing but value, so definitely a great whale package if you're a whale. But outside of that, that's pretty much the ones I would recommend. Every once in a while, these can be good, but they tend to tinker with the amount of hammers in these each time these come out, and they tend to not tinker with them in a upward trend, so it's very unfortunate, but I would say that these are largely skippable as well. So yeah, I would say if you're a Dolphin, these first 2 packages are for you, and if you're a whale, this is going to be your package, and that's what you're looking at as far as those go. The rest of these here, I would say just ignore because there's really not a whole lot there that I would say is that worth it, so I would just skip the rest of it, and I'm not even going to talk about it. So next up, let's go ahead and talk about the main event here and talk about the characters and these new cards. We'll talk about the stones and get into the meat of this video. So first up, let's go ahead and start from the top. We'll talk about Iori. So Iori Yagami, the SS version of this character, is going to be a purple balance type with a leadership skill that increases special signature fighters' attack by 50% and their power charge rate by 15%. This is a phenomenal leadership skill. It is a strange one. It's a little bit of a hybrid of the one that we're normally used to, which is typically going to be your 45% with your 20% power charge rate increase. So basically this one is kind of playing around with the idea of that leadership skill. A little bit different, but I'm not sure which one I would prefer at this point. Either way though, great leadership skill. The typing is sus. It's not the greatest. However, the leadership skill definitely helps him out quite a bit. I will tell you guys, though, getting into this, that this character is definitely a step down in quality from the Kyo, because the Kyo is actually really powerful. But looking at the core effects here, we're going to see a phenomenal 30% power charge rate increase to his power charge, so that's really good. Other things in here that you like to see is that increase to his attack. He's also going to have a penetration increase and a crit rate increase, so his generic cores are actually pretty good overall. Now when we get into his exclusives, we have the Error of 660 years, and that is going to be a 30% chance to gain damage immunity for 3 seconds when attacked on a cooldown of 15 seconds. This is extremely good, and becoming immune to darkness and stun when Kyo is in the team is also kind of gimmicky as well, but still kind of cool. The stun part of it would probably come up more often because darkness is not necessarily found everywhere, so yeah, mainly the thing that you would see there would be the stun as far as any benefit, but really the big part of this core is that 30% chance to gain damage immunity for 3 seconds when he's being attacked, with a very short cooldown for what it is at 15 seconds. That's a really good save opportunity for him, so very good core. Now, Strongest Rival is going to be his next exclusive core, and this is going to increase active skill damage dealt to enemies affected by burn or darkness by 80%. So, very nice that he has this. We'll get into his skills here momentarily, and you'll see where the burn and the darkness come from for him, but an increase to his overall damage dealt while they are affected by those 2 dots by 80% is a nice big jump in damage, so very good. And then we get into the exclusive special signature volume 2 cores. So this is the first time we'll be talking about these, but basically what these are going to be is these are going to be shared between both of these characters. And basically, as you can see here, it's going to decrease all enemies' power by 1% every 0.3 seconds when in guard stance, and decrease damage received by 70% for 3 seconds when accumulated attacks received, guard included, reaches 5 times on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So we are seeing pretty much what we saw with the BS characters as far as decreasing the enemy's power whenever you're in guard. That is something that we saw with those, and it is carried over to these. But that decrease to his damage received by 70% for 3 seconds as a save is really, really good. And any of these saves are typically going to be mainly useful in PvP, but still the fact that this character has so many opportunities to protect himself overall in just his cores is really, really nice. So yeah, overall very good. His cores are really nice. Now, when it comes to his skills, he is going to have on his S1 a 20% chance to reset cooldown when using a skill, and then he is going to have Blackout. So basically the S1 is going to have the dot application for the tier 2 dot of darkness being Blackout. Of course, for those of you who are not aware, that's going to deal darkness damage equal to 30% of attack every 1 second and decrease power by 2%. The decrease to power is really another big PvP thing, so not necessarily anything in PvE you're ever really going to need to worry about. And that 20% chance to reset the cooldown when using a skill is really nice as well, because resets are pretty much standard for meta characters these days. So yeah, overall pretty good skill. Now next up, you're going to have his S2. This is going to have a source of hyper armor, so not only does he have hyper armor, or at least damage immunity rather, on his cores, but he has a hyper armor on his S2, so even more protection for this character. And this is going to be an interrupt with a PvP exclusive of disabling the target's active skills for 4 seconds upon landing a skill. So this is going to be a pretty good PvP character, I get the feeling. This is looking pretty good overall for him, but there are a few things he is going to be lacking for PvP. So, you know, while he may have some definite weapons in his arsenal for that mode, it's not necessarily completely designed around that with that in mind. So, you know, one thing you would really like to see is you would like to see a traditional guard break on this character, but you really don't see that in this kit. So, yeah, jury is still out. We'll have to wait and see what he does in that mode. So next up on his S3, he is going to increase attack by 35% for 7 seconds with a 50% chance to reset the cooldown of 127 Shiki, whatever, upon landing a skill on a cooldown of 15 seconds. I'm not going to try and even pronounce things that I know I'll butcher. So that is pretty much what you're looking at there. He's going to have another chance of a reset in here, and that chance at resetting is going to be on his S2. So pretty nice overall. He is going to have a PvP exclusive with a 60% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor upon landing a skill on a target with super or hyper armor. So really, really cool that he has this. Again, very, very good in PvP. We'll have to wait and see, like I said, because again, he does not have some things you would look for in PvP, but then again, he also has quite a few things that you do. So I get the feeling he will be a player. It's just a matter of time before we know how big of a player. And then finally, with his finisher, he does have burn on his finisher. So basically you are going to be dealing burn damage equal to 27% of attack every 1 second for 10 seconds upon landing a skill. So very, very nice overall. This character, I would say, is going to be pretty decent. Do I think he's on par with the BS characters or with SS Mai or with SS Kyo? No, not necessarily. There are certain things you would like to see on him in order to get him to that point. And as far as his kit goes, you know, overall he does have that mixed dot damage, but unfortunately the burn you really only get with the finisher, so that's one thing. And then, of course, looking at the types of skills he has kind of a mixed kit with a blast, a strike, and a grab. So at least it's not all grabs, so he is going to be viable across quite a few modes, and he will be extremely good on the same team as Kyo, but Kyo, in my opinion, is going to be the big get from this banner, and that is what segues us into this guy right here, because this guy right here is kind of a monster. So yeah, let's talk about SS Kyo real quick. So Kyo is going to be a yellow attack type with a leadership skill that increases special signature fighters' attack by 60% and decreases their HP by 5%. Very good overall leadership skill and very good typing makes this character very sought after already, and he's sure me approved handsome. So to be honest with you, this has been a while since we've had this on a character, and it's OP, because we all know that's the most important thing in this game is whether or not Shermie thinks you're handsome. So you guys know what you need to do. You need to dump all of your rubies into this character just for that reason. Alright, kidding aside, let's go to the cores and take a look at those, because this is really where this character starts to take off, because as you'll see here, a 30% power charge rate increase just like Iori, with the same kind of cores you would see on Iori that we had talked about previously as far as him having really good cores. And you're going to notice that there is a theme here. There is quite a bit of parity between these two characters overall, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go through here. But when we get to his exclusive cores, you continue to see this trend. He has a 30% chance to gain damage immunity for 3 seconds when he's attacked on a cooldown of 15 seconds. So again, an extremely good save, the same as Iori. And then he is going to increase his active skill damage by 20% when Iori is in the team, a much better core than what Iori has for having these two on the same team. This is very, very good, and overall this is where we start to see this character kind of set himself apart from Iori as a character in general. But then when we get to Eternal Protagonist, his final core, this is going to increase active skill damage dealt to enemies affected by burn or starlight by 60%. Very, very good core. And then he is going to have the same special signature volume 2 cores as you would be normally used to. Next up, let's move on to his skills. On his S1, he's going to have a 20% chance to reset the cooldowns when using a skill, and he applies Infernal Flame to the target for 6 seconds upon a successful attack, which is a tier 2 dot that deals burn damage equal to 30% of attack every 1 second, and decreases critical rate by 80% and defense by 30%. Overall, extremely good S1, and his skill animations in general are better geared towards PvE. Just so you guys are aware, you typically do not want very long or very slow animations on your skills for PvE, which I would say is more in line with what we see on Iori versus Kyo here, but that is another reason why this character is going to be a little bit better. Well, honestly, a lot bit better, but I digress. On his S2, he is going to have Hyper Armor for 3 seconds, and he's also going to increase the target's damage received by 20% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill with an interrupt. So very, very good skill there. And then finally, to kind of put a bow on it, you got his S3. His S3 is going to increase attack by 30% for 7 seconds, with a 50% chance to reset cooldown for 115 Shiki, not going to pronounce it because I can't, upon landing a skill on a cooldown of 15 seconds. And then he is going to have the PvP exclusive of a 60% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor upon landing a skill on a target with super or hyper armor, same as Iori. So overall, really good skill there as well. Got another reset there available to him, and basically the name of the game with this character is damage, damage, damage. We're going to have to wait and see where he ranks amongst the best on damage, meaning that where he ranks amongst characters such as Rugal and Mai and Geese and Chrysalid and so on and so forth, but I get the feeling that he is going to be pretty high ranking overall just based on looking at this kit. And then finally on his finisher, he is going to have Starlight on his finisher. So you're going to be able to deal Starlight whenever you use his core finisher. So overall, Kyo, very, very good character. I would say that this is the character that you are going to want to chase. This is going to be the best of the two. And this is a character that does have the potential to be one of the top DPS in the game. So overall, we'll have to wait and see, get our hands on him, try him out. But man, overall, this character is looking really, really good, and I'm very happy overall with this kit. So that is going to be Kyo and Iori, and then let's go ahead now and talk about one big factor with both of these characters that factors into whether or not you should pull for them, and that's going to be the stones, and then we'll move on to the cards. So basically, we had already talked about the fact that for awakening these characters, you are going to be able to acquire the Volume 2 SS stones for both of these characters, and if you go up here to the event tab, you will see that these are obtainable this way. Basically, whenever you awaken one of these characters, depending on what awakening level you are getting them to, whether it's awakening level 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, you will be able to get different rewards. For the first 3 awakening levels, you'll be able to pick the corresponding stone for the character, as you can see here, and then when you get to awakening level 4, you will be able to get the elite enhancement hammers, and then for awakening level 5, you will get 1,000 rubies. So that's kind of what you're looking at as far as this goes, same as what we saw with the BS characters. And as far as these stones here, basically, as we can see, this is going to be what we're looking at with the Volume 1 stone, or at least the first stone for these characters, and that is going to be an increase to Special Signature Fighters blast skills damage by 3%, and that is what I know about these so far. It is very, very early in the morning, you guys, so I have no information on the rest of these stones right this second. So far today, this has all been out for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, so still not entirely sure about the rest of these stones yet. I will be sure to let you guys know whenever I figure that out, so definitely stay tuned for that. But that's how you would get the stones for these characters, and being that they did not put these stones in any other spot right now, yeah, that's how you're going to have to get them. So, yeah, basically they want you to pull for these characters in a big way. And if you guys want my recommendation, it comes down to how you feel about these characters as far as your fandom towards them. I don't think that either of these characters are absolute must-haves. However, considering the fact that this Kyo is so strong on damage, and he has one of the better finishers in the game right now, which we're about to talk about, I would say he's definitely worth it, but I don't think that either of these characters are must-owns. It comes down to what you want and what you want to spend on, and that's kind of the way I look at either of these characters right now. Time might change that, but if you already have a bunch of BS characters, if you have the original SS characters, so on and so forth, I do not think that you are in any need for these characters in such a way to where it would make or break you, so just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead now, we'll talk about the cards, because that is the last thing in this update that we need to cover here, thankfully, otherwise this video is going to be an hour long. Alright, so first up, let's talk about this card set, because I get the feeling we've already talked about this. We've already talked about this, right? Does anybody else have deja vu when we go through this effect? But basically, this is going to be the Gears of Fate set, and it is going to increase attack by 7% per card, so a flat 21% increase for having this card set active on your character. And then on its set effect, it is going to increase attack by 13%, with a 30% chance to increase the target's damage received by 10% for 8 seconds upon landing an active skill on a cooldown of 20 seconds, and a PvP exclusive of when a special signature fighter is attacked, they disable the attacker's blast active skills for 3 seconds on a cooldown of 30 seconds. If this looks eerily similar to the City of Darkness set, that's because it's basically the same set. So, very, very similar. So, same rules apply, I get the feeling with this one. It's going to basically be a set that is extremely good for any type of mode where your entire team is going to be on the battlefield at the same time, because that 30% chance to increase the target's damage received by 10% for 8 seconds will be something that will apply to your entire team. In other just general modes, it will still be pretty decent, but I would argue there are better sets out there at that point to pick from. But this is a very good set. It's very good compared to, like I said, the City of Darkness. It's about the same. So overall, I would say that this is a set worth going for if you miss City of Darkness. But if you already have City of Darkness, I do not think that this is something you have to go for, because really you only need one copy of City of Darkness, or at least one set rather. I guess there is a point to be made that you might be able to use 2 technically, because you have 2 teams for things like Immortals and so on and so forth, but largely I think you can get by with 1. But either way, very, very good set. Like I said, very comparable to the one we just had. But next up, let's go ahead and take a look at these finishers and start out with Kyo's, because Kyo's is arguably the best card in this entire thing. So basically, this is going to be his finisher here. It is extremely long. This is going to be a card that you are going to get a ton of usefulness out of in things such as Immortals or Guild Raid or really anything in PvE because of that long animation on it. So that is very, very nice that it has this, but it also has some pretty good effects on it. So basically it is going to give you 10% power back when using it. This is really, really good, you guys, because you'll be able to fire this off more consistently with this character. So this coupled with his kit makes him, just in my opinion, definitively better overall than Iori is. However, there is definitely a case to be made that you want both of these characters, because technically to get the full potential out of either, you'll need them on the same team. So that's kind of the give and the take there. But this is a really good card. It is good for the same reasons that Geese's is, but the other thing that you need to keep in mind, you don't have to rely on any grabs with this. Basically, this is going to be a full screen animation that you do not need to rely upon a grab in order to use. So this is going to be really, really good. I think that you guys definitely want this card. If you're going for this character, you need it. So make sure that you guys allot enough rubies for yourselves to at least go to pity once so that you can get this card. So make sure you keep that in mind. And then it's also going to have a PvP exclusive of increasing damage by 10% upon landing Orochi, Saisyu, Ogi, I don't know what I'm saying, skill to an Orochi clan fighter. So largely being that it's only useful against an Orochi clan fighter, you don't really need to consider that too much. So overall, the biggest selling point of this is going to be that long animation again. So make sure that you guys pick this up if you're going for these characters, because you definitely want this card. Next up, we'll talk about Iori's. Iori's is very similar in a lot of ways. Basically, it is also going to be a very long animation. Not quite as long as Kyo's to my understanding, although I could be wrong. I don't have any of this stuff yet, like I said, and this stuff just dropped. So kind of bear with me on that. We'll know more here over the coming hours and days. But basically, this is going to be a 3PG finisher with a nice long animation that is also going to give you 10% power when using it. So again, very, very good. And then as far as a PvP exclusive, it is going to be the same as the Kyo card. So these two cards, very, very similar, very, very strong, very powerful. I would say the Kyo one is definitely the one you want because, again, to my understanding, it is slightly longer and it is going to be on just a better character overall. And for those of you who did not see yesterday's video or read the notes on this stuff before it released, no, you cannot use either of these on things like Nest Kyo, Orochi Iori, Unshackled Iori, and so on and so forth. So keep that in mind. If that was your intention, you cannot use these on those characters. So that is going to be the finishers. We have one more card to take a look at here, and that is going to be a bout that can't be delayed, which is the newest option card. Now this one's pretty interesting because just like the set card before it that we talked about, this is actually going to be fairly reminiscent of the last SS banner option card that we had. Basically, it's going to increase your attack, it's going to decrease your skill cooldowns, and then it is going to have a special effect that is extremely similar to that card in that it increases attack by 13% for 5 seconds and grants super armor for 2 seconds when a special signature fighter tags in, whereas if you'll remember with the option card that we got with the previous SS banner, that only applies to female fighters. So overall, it's kind of a toss-up between these two. I think that this one in the short term is a little bit better, only in the capacity that really, honestly, when you think about female fighters in the game in specific instances where you'd be tagging in and out, normally you're going to be looking at your SS fighters anyway. So at that point, this card would just be a preferable option, I would assume, or at least a lateral move. But at the end of the day, eventually, as we get more and more female fighters added in, chances are that other card will age better. So it really just depends on where they go with things down the road, but we are going to be getting more special signature fighters in the future. So overall, being that this one is going to count towards the 2 new fighters as well, I would say that this one right now is a little bit better, but they're very, very similar. So they're pretty much trying to do the same thing. So really, honestly, this card's really good. I think that you should try and get this. Hopefully, if you're going in on the card banner, you are able to pick this up. because it is extremely good. But that's pretty much going to be it for the updates, you guys. I think that covers everything. Like I said, once I know more about those stones, I will make sure to update things. But that's pretty much everything in this. To kind of put a bow on it, overall, do I think you have to have these characters? No, I don't, but I do think that Kyo is so good, and I do think that you will want him because his overall damage output is just insane, and his finisher is phenomenal. He is going to be a monster for things such as Immortals and Guild Raid, I get the feeling, depending on what this new Guild Raid boss brings with it as far as what it's weak to. He might end up proving to be just that much more useful. Again, we'll have to wait a few days to know on that. As far as the cards are concerned, the set is pretty much up to whether or not you need another copy of the City of Darkness set or you don't have a copy of the City of Darkness set. But really the big thing that you want on this banner is going to be the option, the Kyo finisher, and again, you'll probably want the Iori finisher as well. If you have Iori, if you end up getting him when you're going for Kyo, or if Iori is just one of your favorite characters, you'll definitely want that in general. So the cards are pretty darn good. Characters pretty darn good, with Kyo being the front runner as far as the best one here, and potentially being one of the highest DPSs in the entire game at this point. Again, once we get our hands on these, we will have a better outlook on this, but for now, that is my read on these. And then as far as anything else here, this is a mixed bag of an update. I'm not necessarily excited about a lot of it. There's certain things about it that I do think kind of suck. I would have liked to have seen this carnival give people that don't have a ton of memories other options to get through this, because this is really going to be a double-edged sword. Like I said, people with a ton of memories and a ton of options there will get through this very easily and get through it day one, whereas new players who have far less memories than the veteran players are going to be very hard up to get this unless they're summoning. So that is one thing there. And then as far as the rest of this stuff, the rush dungeon, the overall, the rewards for this thing just aren't good, and that's just where I'm at with it. Like, we've had a lot of high hopes for this, and they were just dashed, so this is a fail in my opinion for now. I mean, I don't know if this is all they're intending on or what, but that's definitely what it appears to be, and that just isn't great in my opinion. And overall, that's about what I think about this stuff for now. I'm going to gather my thoughts. Like I said, it's like 4 a.m. at this point, so I'll have a better outlook on this stuff over the coming hours, but for now, that's my initial knee-jerk reactions to this stuff. But what say you guys? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you pull for these guys? Are you planning on pulling for these guys? Who's your favorite? What do you think of these characters? What do you think of these events? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you haven't pulled yet, well, good luck to you guys. I hope you get them, and you guys know the drill. If you're new here, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. You all take care. Peace.
Continue.